The great chamber of the Pillar of Order had stood for 50,000 years. Its walls were made of crystal that sang when light touched them. 12 seats circled a platform of white stone, and in each seat sat a being older than human civilization. They were the Galactic Council, rulers of 10,000 worlds, keepers of peace across the stars. Today they had gathered to end a species. The Vel representative rose from its seat. It was tall and thin, with 4 arms and eyes like black glass. Its voice clicked and hummed as it spoke. "We have watched the humans for 200 years. We have given them chances. We have shown them patience. But they have broken every rule we gave them." Screens appeared in the air, showing images of ships and stations hidden among asteroids. Secret places that humans had built, far from watching eyes. "They build weapons," the Vel continued. "They hide fleets. They whisper of war in their communications. They are exactly what we feared they would be. Violent, dangerous, uncontrollable." The other representatives watched in silence. Some nodded slowly. None spoke against the Vel. "I call for the vote," the Vel said. "I call for Purification War." The words hung in the air like poison. Purification War. It was the Council's final answer to species that could not be controlled. In all of galactic history, 17 species had faced this sentence. None had survived. One by one, the 12 representatives cast their votes. 12 lights turned red. The decision was complete. "It is done," the Vel announced. "The humans will be purified. Their worlds will be cleaned. Their memory will be erased from history. In 100 years, no one will remember they ever existed." Far across the galaxy, on a small blue planet called Earth, a young woman named Mina Lee sat in a dark room filled with screens and machines. She was an intelligence officer, trained to listen to the whispers of the universe. Her job was to catch secrets before they became surprises. Tonight, she caught the biggest secret of all. Her hands shook as she read the transmission. She read it twice, then 3 times, hoping she had made a mistake. But the words did not change. The Council had declared war. Not just any war, Purification War. Mina grabbed the paper and ran. The underground command center beneath the Korean peninsula was the heart of Earth's defense. It stretched for miles beneath the mountains, filled with soldiers and scientists and machines of war. Mina ran through its long corridors, past guards who tried to stop her, past officers who shouted questions she did not answer. She burst through the final door into a room where a woman stood alone before a wall of stars. Admiral Una Park was 53 years old. Her hair was silver at the temples, and her eyes were the color of winter ice. She had commanded Earth's fleets for 15 years, but she had been preparing for war for much longer than that. 30 years, to be exact. 30 years of building, hiding, waiting. Una turned slowly as Mina entered. Her face showed no emotion. "Admiral," Mina gasped, holding out the paper. "The Council, they voted. It's Purification War." The room fell silent. Other officers had followed Mina, and now they stood frozen, waiting for their commander's reaction. Some expected anger. Others expected fear. A few expected tears. Una took the paper and read it slowly. Her eyes moved across each word like she was reading a poem she had memorized long ago. When she finished, she set the paper down on a table beside her. Then she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had waited in the cold forest for 30 years, and had finally heard the footsteps of her prey. "At last," she said. The officers stared at her. Mina felt her blood turn cold. "Admiral?" someone whispered. Una turned back to the wall of stars. Her solar system floated there, in blue light. Earth, Mars, Jupiter, the asteroid belt, Neptune, all the places where humanity lived and worked and dreamed. They think they are coming to kill sheep, Una said softly. They think we are weak, primitive, easy to destroy. She touched the image of Earth with one finger. They have no idea what we really are. She turned to face her officers. The smile was gone now, replaced by something harder. Something that had been forged in fire and tempered by loss. Activate Protocol Sunrise, she ordered. The officers looked at each other in confusion. Most of them had never heard of Protocol Sunrise. It was not in any official database. It did not appear on any command list. Admiral, one officer said carefully, what is Protocol Sunrise? Una walked to the central console. Her fingers moved across the controls, entering codes that only she knew. As she typed, lights began to appear on the star map. Red dots, hundreds of them, scattered across the solar system. Places no one knew existed. Ships no one had ever seen. For 200 years, the Council has watched us, Una said. They counted our ships. They measured our weapons. They calculated exactly how long it would take to destroy us. She pressed the final key, and the red dots multiplied. Thousands of them now, filling the screen like drops of blood. They never thought to look deeper. They never imagined we would hide our true strength. Mina stared at the screen. There were more ships there than she had ever known existed. Fleets hidden in asteroids, stations buried beneath moons, weapons stored in the dark spaces between planets. We have been preparing for this war since the day they murdered 40,000 of our people, Una said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of 30 years of rage. Since they killed my brother and called it justice. She turned to face her officers one final time. The Council thinks they are starting a war tonight. They are wrong. Her eyes burned with cold fire. This war started 30 years ago. They just didn't know it. Now they will learn what happens when you corner a species that refuses to die. The alarms began to sound across the solar system as Protocol Sunrise came to life. In shipyards hidden beneath ice and rock, engines roared awake. Soldiers who had trained in secret reached for weapons designed to kill gods. Humanity was done waiting. The war had finally begun. 30 years ago, Una Park was a different woman. She was 23 then, young and full of hope. Her brother Jay was 5 years older, an engineer on a colony ship called the Bright Morning. The ship carried 40,000 people toward a new world, a new beginning for humanity. Una remembered the last time she saw him. He had hugged her tight and promised to send pictures of the new planet. He had said he would name a mountain after her. He never got the chance. The Council's inspection fleet found the Bright Morning near the edge of human space. The ship was only a few hundred kilometers outside the allowed zone. A small mistake, a tiny error in navigation. The Council ships opened fire without warning. In 6 minutes, 40,000 people became ash and silence. The Council called it enforcement of containment protocols. They offered no apology. They felt no guilt. To them, humans were like insects that had crawled too far from their nest. Una watched the recording of her brother's death 17 times. On the 18th viewing, something inside her changed forever. The hope died. The softness burned away. What remained was harder than steel. She made a promise that night. One day, the Council would learn what it meant to murder human children. Now, 30 years later, that day had come. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, hidden shipyards came alive. Captain Tae Kim stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, watching through the viewport as ship after ship emerged from the rocks around him. Tae was 35 years old, with sharp eyes and quick hands. He had trained for 10 years under Una's command, learning everything she knew about war. Now he was ready to put that knowledge to use. "How many ships are launching?" he asked his crew. 3,000 from this sector alone, his first officer replied. Reports coming in from Neptune, Jupiter, and the outer stations. Total count is approaching 12,000. 12,000 warships. The Council believed humanity had only 800. Tay allowed himself a small smile. The Council was about to get a very unpleasant surprise. On Mars, beneath the red dust and the ancient rocks, Dr. Hana Cho walked through the corridors of Project Silence. She was 42 years old, a scientist who had dedicated her life to giving humanity the weapons it needed to survive. The Council had rules about technology. Certain sciences were forbidden, certain paths of research were blocked and guarded. They said some knowledge was too dangerous. Hana had never cared much for rules. Project Silence had been running for 60 years, passed down from scientist to scientist like a sacred flame. They studied the forbidden technologies. They built the impossible weapons. They prepared for the day when humanity would need them. That day had arrived. Hana stopped before a massive door and pressed her hand against the scanner. The door opened, revealing a chamber the size of a stadium. Inside sat a ship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It had no engines that the Council would recognize. It used no fuel that their science could explain. It moved through space in ways that broke every rule the elder species thought they understood. The Council controlled faster-than-light travel through their gate network. If you wanted to move between stars, you had to use their gates. This gave them power over every species in the galaxy. Humanity's new ships did not need gates. "Is it ready?" Hana asked her assistant. "The first 100 are complete," the young man replied. "More are being built every day." Hana nodded. "Good. The Admiral will be pleased." Back on Earth, General Wu Sung gathered his soldiers. Wu was 60 years old, a mountain of a man, with scars on his face and hands. He had fought in the last great war on Earth, the Civil War that had nearly destroyed humanity before the aliens ever had a chance. He knew what war looked like. He knew its smell, and its taste, and its weight. He also knew that humans were very, very good at it. "Listen to me," he said to the soldiers assembled before him. "The Council thinks they are warriors. They are not. They have fought with machines and drones for 10,000 years. They have forgotten what real combat looks like." He held up a suit of powered armor, black and sleek and deadly. "We have not forgotten. We have been training for this fight every day of our lives. We know their weaknesses. We know their fears. We know exactly how to kill them." The soldiers roared their approval. "When we board their ships, they will break. When we land on their worlds, they will run. They have never faced an enemy like us. They have never met a species that looks them in the eye and smiles while fighting." Wu put on the helmet of the armor. His voice echoed through its speakers. "Today, we remind the galaxy why they were afraid of humans in the first place." At the edge of the solar system, sensors detected the first signs of the Council's fleet. 3,000 warships, the largest purification force ever assembled. They moved through space in perfect formation, confident and proud. On the bridge of the lead vessel, a Vel commander watched the human solar system grow larger in its view screen. It expected to see fear. It expected to see desperate attempts at negotiation, perhaps even surrender. Instead, its sensors began screaming warnings. Ships, thousands of ships, appearing from everywhere at once. From asteroids and moons and places that should have been empty. More ships than any species should have been able to hide. The Vel commander's eyes widened as the numbers climbed higher and higher. 12,000 contacts, 15,000, still counting. "Impossible," it whispered. A communication signal reached the Council fleet. A human woman's face appeared on every screen. Silver hair, ice-cold eyes, a smile that promised death. "Welcome to human space," Admiral Unipark said. "We have been waiting for you." The display showed a countdown. 3 hours until the fleets would meet. 3 hours until the galaxy learned what humanity could really do. The sleeping giant was awake, and it was angry. The Battle of the Neptune Line began at exactly midnight, Earth time. Captain Tae Kim watched from the bridge of the Eternal Dawn as the Council fleet approached. 3,000 warships flew in perfect formation, their shapes strange and beautiful and deadly. They moved like a single creature, every ship in its proper place. It was the same formation the Council had used for 10,000 years. Why change something that had never failed? Today, it would fail. All ships, Tae said into his communicator, begin pattern 7. The human fleet scattered like leaves in wind. Ships flew in every direction, breaking into small groups, weaving between asteroids and moons. To the Council commanders, it looked like chaos. It looked like panic. It was neither. The Vel commander watched its screens with growing confusion. The humans were not fighting properly. They were not forming battle lines. They were not positioning their strongest ships at the front. They were behaving like animals, wild and unpredictable. They have no discipline, the commander said to its officers. This will be easier than expected. It was the last mistake it would ever make. The human ships attacked from everywhere at once. They came from above and below, from the sides and the rear. They struck fast and disappeared before the Council weapons could track them. They fought like wolves, hunting a slow, fat animal. Explosions lit up the darkness of space. Council ships broke apart, their shields failing against weapons they had never seen before. The perfect formation shattered into confusion. On the Eternal Dawn, Tae smiled grimly. Phase 2, he ordered. Boarding teams, launch. Across the battlefield, small ships detached from the human fleet. They were fast and hard to hit, designed for one purpose only. They flew toward disabled Council vessels, latching onto their hulls like parasites. Inside each boarding ship waited 50 human soldiers in powered armor. The Council had not faced boarding actions in 8,000 years. It was considered primitive, wasteful. No civilized species sent soldiers to fight hand-to-hand when machines could do the killing. Humans were not civilized. General Wu Sung led the first boarding team personally. His ship slammed into the hull of a Vel cruiser, and cutting torches burned through the metal. In seconds, his soldiers poured into the alien ship. The Vel crew never stood a chance. They were tall and thin, built for thinking rather than fighting. Their forearms were delicate, designed for precise work. They had not engaged in physical combat for millennia. The humans crashed into them like a wave of steel and fury. Wu's armor made him strong enough to tear through walls. His rifle fired rounds that could pierce any material. But in the close corridors of the ship, he often did not bother with the rifle. He used his fists. He used his blade. The Vel screamed. They ran. They begged for mercy in languages humans did not understand. Wu felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Bridge secured, he reported after 10 minutes. Ship is ours. Across the battlefield, the same scene repeated on dozens of Council vessels. Human soldiers moved through alien ships, taking them piece by piece. The psychological effect was devastating. The Council species had forgotten what it felt like to look into an enemy's eyes. They had forgotten the terror of facing a creature that wanted to kill you with its bare hands. Now they remembered. In the great command center on Earth, Admiral Una Park watched the battle unfold on her screens. Red dots disappeared as Council ships fell. Blue dots held steady as her fleet pushed forward. Admiral, Mina Lee sent from their station, we have intercepted Council communications. They are panicking. Show me, Una said. The screens filled with voices. Vel commanders screaming for backup. Other species demanding explanations. Officers who had never lost a battle trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. The humans are inside our ships, one voice cried. They are everywhere. They look at us and smile while they kill. Una's expression did not change. Good, she said quietly. An aide approached her carefully. Admiral, the Council fleet is beginning to retreat. Should we pursue? No. Una turned to face her officers. Let them run. Let them return to their masters and tell them what happened here. Let them describe what human soldiers look like when they are finally allowed to fight. She looked back at the screen, where the Council formation had become a scattered mess of fleeing ships. Fear is a weapon too. Today we planted seeds of terror that will grow in their nightmares for generations. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Council had lost 40% of their purification fleet. Humanity had lost less than 300 ships. It was the most one-sided defeat in galactic history. On the Pillar of Order, the Council representatives gathered in emergency session. They had watched the battle in real time. They had seen their mighty fleet broken by creatures they considered primitive. This is impossible, the Vel representative said. Its voice shook with something it had not felt in centuries. Fear. They should not have this technology. They should not have these numbers. Where did they get these weapons? No one had an answer. What do we do now? Another representative asked. Silence filled the chamber. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Galactic Council did not know what to do. Far away, on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, Captain Tae Kim received a message from Admiral Una Park. 2 words only. Push forward. Tae smiled. The Council had wanted war. They had declared purification. They had expected humanity to die quietly. They had been terribly, terribly wrong. Set course for Council space, Tae ordered his fleet. The first battle is won. The war has just begun. Humanity was no longer defending. Humanity was hunting. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. For 10,000 years, the Council had controlled everything. They decided which species lived and which species died. They drew the borders and made the rules. No one challenged them. No one dared. Now, human fleets moved through Council space like wolves through a field of sheep. Admiral Una Park stood in her command center, watching the strategic map. Blue dots spread across territories that had been forbidden to humans for 2 centuries. Every day they pushed deeper. Every day the Council grew weaker. Report from Captain Tae, an officer announced. He has reached the Vel border systems. Resistance is light. Una nodded. The Vel had been the loudest voices calling for humanity's destruction. Now they would be the first to feel what that hatred had cost them. Tell him to proceed, Una said, but remind him of our rules. We do not kill civilians. We do not destroy cities. We are not them. This was important to her. The Council had murdered innocent people without a thought. They had burned ships full of children. Una would not let humanity become the same kind of monster. But they would win it the right way. On Mars, Dr. Hana Cho prepared her greatest weapon. It was not a bomb. It was not a death ray. It was something far more elegant. She called it the Silence Engine, and it could shut down every piece of technology on an entire planet. No explosions, no fire, no death, just sudden, complete stillness. This is how we will win without becoming killers, Hana explained to the military officers who had come to see her work. When we reach their homeworlds, we do not need to bombard them from orbit. We simply turn off their power. Their ships stop flying, their weapons stop firing, their cities go dark. And then, one officer asked, then we talk. We offer them peace on our terms. Most species will accept. Why die for a council that has already failed them? It was a clean strategy, a human strategy. Victory without genocide. Across the galaxy, Mina Lee worked without sleep. She had been promoted to Una's personal intelligence staff after intercepting the original war declaration. Now, she spent her days and nights listening to Council communications, finding secrets, tracking movements. What she found surprised her. Admiral, she reported. 3 council species have made secret contact with us. The Toral, the Mashan, and the Keth. They want to negotiate. Yuna looked at her sharply. Negotiate what? Neutrality. They will withdraw from the war if we promise not to attack their territories. Some of them are even offering to share intelligence about Vel fleet movements. The council was fracturing. The alliance that had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years was breaking apart in months. Yuna allowed herself a small smile. We have no quarrel with species that did not vote for our destruction. Admiral, all 12 species voted for purification. Some voted because they believed it was right. Others voted because they were afraid to stand alone against the majority. Yuna's voice was cold but fair. We will remember the difference. Captain Tae Kim led his fleet to the Battle of the Vel Threshold. It was the largest engagement since Neptune. 4 council species had combined their armadas to stop the human advance. They outnumbered Tae 3-1. They held the high ground, positioned around a massive space station that controlled travel through this region. Any other commander would have retreated. Tae attacked. He had studied ancient Earth battles for years. Thermopylae, Kane, Midway, Incheon. He knew that numbers did not always win wars. Clever tactics and brave soldiers could overcome any odds. The asteroid field near the station became his weapon. He hid his ships among the rocks, drawing the council fleet into a maze where their numbers meant nothing. In the tight spaces between asteroids, human ships could fight one-on-one. And in one-on-one combat, no one could match human aggression. The battle lasted 2 days. When it ended, Tae had lost a quarter of his fleet, but the council had lost everything. The station fell. The path to the Vel homeworld lay open. General Wu Sung landed on the first liberated human colony 3 days later. The planet was called New Busan. It had been founded by Korean colonists 80 years ago, before the council seized it and placed its people under supervision. For 3 generations, humans had lived there as prisoners in their own homes. When Wu's dropships descended through the clouds, the people of New Busan came out to watch. They stood in the streets, looking up at the sky with eyes that had forgotten how to hope. Then they saw the flags on the ships. Earth flags, human flags. The cheering began slowly, then grew into a roar that shook the buildings. Wu stepped out of his ship and was immediately surrounded by crying, laughing people. Old men grabbed his hands and wept. Children touched his armor with wonder. Women shouted questions about family members they had not seen in decades. For the first time in the war, Wu felt tears in his own eyes. You came, an old woman said to him. We thought you had forgotten us. Never, Wu said. His voice was rough with emotion. We never forgot. We just needed time to get strong enough to come for you. Back on Earth, Yuna received a transmission from the council. They wanted to negotiate. She read their message carefully. They offered to end the war. They offered to release all human colonies. They even offered to treat humanity as equals in galactic affairs. 6 months ago, this would have been everything humanity had dreamed of. Yuna deleted the message without responding. Admiral? Mina asked carefully. Shouldn't we at least answer them? They can wait, Yuna said. Her eyes were fixed on the map, on the path that led to the Pillar of Order. We waited 200 years. They can wait a few more months. The wolves were still hunting, and they would not stop until they reached the heart of the enemy. The Pillar of Order hung in space like a monument to power. It was the largest structure in the galaxy, a station built over thousands of years where the Council had ruled since before humans learned to make fire. No enemy had ever reached it. No species had ever dared to try. Until now. Admiral Yuna Park stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, watching the station grow larger in the viewport. Behind her ship, the human fleet spread across space like a tide of steel. 12,000 vessels, every one of them carrying soldiers who had waited their whole lives for this moment. "Admiral," Captain Tae Kim said quietly, "we are in position, awaiting your orders." Yuna took a deep breath. She had dreamed of this day for 30 years. In those dreams, she had imagined rage, triumph, revenge. But now that the moment had arrived, she felt only a strange calmness. "Open communications to the Council," she said. "Let them see who has come for them." On the Pillar of Order, alarms screamed through every corridor. The Council representatives gathered in their great chamber for what they knew would be the last time. Their fleets were destroyed. Their allies had abandoned them. The humans had come, and there was nothing left to stop them. The Vel representative stood alone in the center of the room. Around it, the other species watched, with eyes full of fear and blame. This had been the Vel's war. The Vel had pushed for purification. The Vel had promised easy victory. Now the Vel would answer for their failure. "We can still fight," the Vel said. Its voice shook, but did not break. "We have station defenses. We have soldiers. We can make them pay for every step they take." "Fight with what?" another representative shouted. "Your warriors ran from human soldiers, like children running from fire. Your ships broke against their fleet, like glass against stone." A scream flickered to life in the chamber. Admiral Yuna Park's face appeared, silver hair and ice-cold eyes, looking down at the beings who had sentenced her species to death. "This is Admiral Yuna Park of the United Earth Fleet," she said. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "You declared purification war on humanity 7 months ago. You planned to erase us from existence. You thought we would be easy prey." She paused, letting the silence grow heavy. "You were wrong. Now I am here to accept your surrender. You have 1 hour to decide." The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted at each other in a dozen languages. Some demanded resistance. Some begged for mercy. Some simply sat in silence, accepting their fate. Only the Vel refused to surrender. When the hour passed, its ships launched from the station in one final desperate attack. There were only a few hundred of them, the last remnants of a once mighty fleet. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, the Vel fleet was gone. Every ship destroyed. Every warrior dead. The Vel had chosen extinction rather than accepting defeat at human hands. The other species chose differently. Yuna transported to the Pillar of Order, with General Wu Sung at her side, and Captain Tae Kim behind them. Mina Lee followed, recording everything for history. They walked through corridors that had never felt human footsteps, past guards who dropped their weapons and fled. The doors to the council chamber opened before them. Inside, the remaining representatives waited. They stood in a group, small and afraid, watching the humans enter their sacred space. Yuna walked to the center of the chamber, where Vel representatives had stood for thousands of years. She looked around at the beings who had ruled the galaxy, who had decided which species lived and which species died. They would not decide anymore. "The Galactic Council is dissolved," Yuna announced. Her voice echoed through the ancient hall. "A new alliance will take its place. All species will be members. All species will be equals. There will be no more purification wars, no more containment zones, no more treating sentient beings like animals to be controlled." One of the representatives stepped forward. It was old and tired, its body bent with age and defeat. "Why?" it asked. "Why show us mercy? We tried to destroy you. We killed your people. We treated you with contempt for 200 years. Why not do the same to us?" Yuna was silent for a long moment. "Because we are not you," she finally said. "We endured your hatred. We survived your attempts to kill us. We won. But victory means nothing if we become what we fought against. She looked around the chamber one more time. We will not erase your history. We will not burn your worlds. We will not punish your children for the mistakes of their elders. We will do what you never did for us. We will give you a chance. 1 year later, Una stood on Earth. She had retired from the military. The war was over. The new Galactic Alliance was working, slowly and imperfectly, but working. Human ships now traveled freely across the stars. Human colonies grew on 100 worlds. The future she had fought for had finally arrived. Today, she visited a memorial. It was built in a quiet park in Seoul. A wall of names carved in black stone. The people who had died on the bright morning, 31 years ago. One name was special to her. J. Park. Brother, engineer, dreamer. She touched the letters with her fingers. Captain Tae Kim stood nearby, giving her space but staying close. He was an admiral now himself, commanding the fleet that protected human space. But today he was just a friend, here to support the woman who had taught him everything. Do you think he would be proud? Una asked quietly. I think he would be amazed, Tae said. You changed the galaxy. You did it without becoming a monster. That's harder than winning any battle. Una placed a flower at the base of the memorial, white petals against black stone. At last, she whispered. But this time the words were not about war or revenge. They were about peace. She turned and walked away, leaving the memorial behind. Above her, the sky was full of ships, human ships, alien ships, all flying together toward a future that finally belonged to everyone. The war was over. Humanity had won. And somewhere among the stars, J. Park's mountain was waiting to be named.